Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the patience with this technical operation that we're trying to run and accommodate everybody. I'd just like to advise that the first person to have had technical difficulties this morning is our chairman, Bruce Young. So Bruce is dialed in by telephone, can hear us, but can't see our facial responses. And so he's asked me if I would chair the meeting in the event that his internet hookup doesn't get any better. So I welcome you to Lake George Park Commission meeting number 503. And do we have a quorum, Michelle?
Yes, you do.
We do. Okay, we'll jump right in here. We're getting started at 1:13 or 10:13, excuse me. Everybody's received the previous minutes. Anyone have a comment or correction? Motion made.
Motion second.
Second. Motion seconded. All in favor of adopting the minutes from the previous meeting? Any nays? Done and over. We'll turn the page over. Fiscal actions report. You've all hopefully had a chance to review that. Any comments on the fiscal action? Motion to accept the fiscal action. Second to accept it. All in favor? Ayes. Any nays? No nays? Adopted. Project review actions report. Resolution 2021-01. Joe, do you have a resolution?
Yep. Resolution 2021-01, acceptance of the project review actions report. Whereas the commission has received and reviewed the project review actions report prepared by the staff and dated January 19th, 2021, the project review committee recommends acceptance of the project review actions report. Now therefore be resolved that the commission directs that the project review actions report be incorporated in the minutes of the full commission meeting. So moved.
Second.
Motion made, motion seconded. All in favor? Ayes. Any against? Be a nay. I had to run and close the laundry room door because the spinner was spinning. Joe Tuen, would you like to introduce our project number 1, the mooring modification from the Carriage Hill Club, Town of Lake George?
Yes, thank you, and good morning, everyone. The first application is an application by Carriage Hill. They have dock facilities and 3 moorings that provide berthing spaces for their membership. The applicant, representing the entire association, seeks to extend the existing moorings approximately 15 feet further offshore to provide additional space for navigation. The application is represented by Kevin Ton, who is the president for the association. And I saw that Kevin is with us here this morning. So Kevin, I'd invite you to unmute yourself and share a few words about the application and the intent of the association.
Oh, thank you. Just to start off, the moorings have been there since the 1980s. And then 2 years ago, I think Molly Gallagher of Lake George Park Commission came by. We were trying to get a lift. And they said the moorings were not in compliance. Now, the original moorings, the 3 moorings in the docks were all issued in the 80s. And they had no restrictions on the boats, size of boats that we could put in there on the original moorings. So Molly told me I had to go back to the DEC, get a permit for the DEC, as well as go back to Lake George Park Commission to reissue the moorings because they were out 68 feet, which was kind of tight for us. So I think she made us resubmit the permits. I went to the DEC and DEC came back to me and said that the moorings, the DEC did not think it was necessary to move the moorings because they were considered to be within the area expectation for floating object locations. So the DEC said we didn't need a permit, went back to Molly. Molly said, you still need a permit from us. So we submitted all the paperwork and got approval. The issue now is Ray Cassavant's on the middle mooring. Ray is about 80 years old. His wife's in poor health. He can't come up here anymore, okay? He's trying to sell his house, but there's a restriction of an 18-foot boat on the mooring. So he's having a very difficult time trying to sell the house. And he can't come up. Ray loved it. He's been around here forever. So he's just, unfortunately, he's 80 years old. His wife's in poor health. He can't come up. So he's trying to sell it. And it's restricting the house as far as selling the house. People are not walking away when they find out they can only put an 18-foot boat on a mooring. It's a very small boat for this size lake. Okay. Safety has never been an issue in the last 35 years. Okay. We are in a 5-mile-an-hour zone. I went on the Warren County Spatial Viewer last night, and the 5-mile-an-hour zone extends out to 250 feet. So even biggest swing of the boats is not going to take us past that 5-mile-an-hour zone, well within 100 feet. And so that should not be an issue. Also at night, there's a concern about night navigation. We have a street light on our docks, so the mooring boats are illuminated at night. So it's not, I've been on that lake and it's pitch black. We have a street light on the end of the docks that lights up the docks as well as the mooring boats out there, and you can easily see them. What we're trying to do is, if approved, that would help Ray sell his house. Okay, and he's trying to get rid of it. It would make it easier access for the people to come in and out of the docks. It's kind of tight. The commission should be aware that during big storms, we lost 6 boats. They went to the bottom of the lake during Irene. Okay, we lost 6. That's sulfuric acid. That's the motor oil. That's everything in the lake. Irene, we had 4 or 5 foot swells coming to our docks. I think moving them out would also give us a little more leeway. If the boat starts to swing or during a big storm, they're not going to collide at all. Okay, that should be taken. Environmental issues should be taken into. You don't think a lake would destroy boats, but you guys probably know during Irene it was bad. A lot of boats went to the bottom of the lake, and that's an environmental disaster. So if we had a little extra room, it would actually, give us some leeway as far as when the boats are swinging during a big storm and things like that. So we're asking you to grant the variance. It would help us out, help Ray out as far as selling his house, and that's what it is. But again, we are in a 5-mile-an-hour zone, and as far as colliding, nothing ever with the last 35 years. So that's all I have to say as far as that. I'm not sure if there's any questions from the board for me.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Is anyone else here to speak on behalf of the applicant? Is anyone else here to discuss this application?
I can mention, excuse me, I'm Ray Casavant's realtor. I have his home for sale, and we are currently under contract. And the buyer, all along, all the documents, the historic documents that we discovered from the DC, allowed for a certain size boat there. And I don't know what happened over the years, but Ray always had a smaller boat because that's what he enjoyed and that's what he liked. And I think that's what his permit was for. And now the new owner to be has a slightly bigger boat, like the other mooring owners. And he just wants to also, be accommodated for his size. And I guess the other guys, they did a lot of legwork with regards to, moving or deciding if they should have to move to stay in with the 100-foot shoreline. And, obviously Kevin has great points, and the Lake George Park Commission, we completely entrust you guys to make the best decision for that. But Ray, has had a hard time as a realtor, his realtor, hard time selling his home because of the deterrent of not being able to, I guess, lawfully, even though there was no association rules about the size of the boat, but lawfully have a slightly larger boat there because of the swing. And that's always been respected. So long story short, I guess the variance would definitely help Raymond in securing the buyer and closing on his home.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, did we have identity on that person for you? Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Any commissioners have any comments? I know that we made a site visit there Friday morning. No comments from commissioners? Joe?
Ken, if I could, before the commissioners chime in, I'd just like to point out one thing, which is the current permits, the historic permits, offered a 2-foot swing radius on these moorings in addition to the boat length. So they've got 26-foot boats with a 28-foot swing, which, looking at the numbers for what they use for, how they tie down their moorings and how they anchor up, seems unrealistic. Looking at the numbers, it appears we should account for at least 9 feet of swing due just to the rope. And so staff respectfully think that the swing might be closer to 35 feet in total. And in order to get the separation distance that the association seeks, and to try to get a practical view of the impact of these moorings, that the moorings may be best placed closer to 99 feet offshore rather than the 90 that's proposed by the applicant. And speaking with Mr. Tan, he said he was amenable to this modification. So if the commissioners are on board with that and the way we've evaluated that, I would ask that you please, look at the application with respect to it having that 35-foot swing estimated and being 99 feet offshore rather than as originally proposed in the application.
Okay, thank you. Wasn't there also a suggested bylaw amendment, Joe?
Yeah, thank you. So a lot of times associations, we run into variance situations because there's not a limit on membership. So someone might buy thinking they've got a slip. Turns out they don't get a slip, and then they come before the board asking for additional dockage or mooring, requiring a variance. Or boats, as we know, tend to get larger and larger with time. And so someone might buy a bigger boat that the complex can't accommodate. And also associations by definition must be tied, those slips must be tied to real estate, residential real estate, residents specifically inside the Lake George Park. Now in this instance, Carriage Hill meets all these requirements in practice. No one, everyone owns residential property in the park. Membership is limited to the number of slips they have. And in speaking with Mr. Tan, nobody has a boat larger than 27 feet. So to kind of capture the way that this is currently operated, to prevent, potential variance requests in the future, and to ensure we don't have an issue with membership and slip numbers, it's recommended, consistent with other reviews, that we try to memorialize, these restrictions that hopefully won't be a burden on existing membership because it reflects how they operate, but will ensure compliance with the regulations long term.
Thank you. Mr. Mason?
So am I to understand, looking at this whole thing, I'm kind of in favor of it. I don't see a problem with it. It's common sense, and you do need the space, I believe, on sailboat moorings. Are we going to require, as part of our approval, if we approve it, that the homeowners association adopt a 26 or a 27 foot, whatever that was, maximum? Because I also believe that it does make sense to put a maximum. The sailboats, especially when they get bigger than that, they get very heavy, and they really can start, in a storm, they can start dragging things around. So I would be all in favor of that. That makes sense, and tying it to the land as well, as you suggested, Joe.
That's one of the conditions on the resolution, Bill.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to be heard?
I would. I'm not against this, but I am concerned that we've on record said we do not make variances based on the size of people's boats. So if 10 years from now, someone else is trying to sell a lot for a 30-foot boat because the new owner or the potential owner wants a 30-foot boat, are we opening up a can of worms? And that's my only concern.
Good question. I think part of our concern as we were there Friday morning was, fortunately, moorings drift a little bit, which we well know from Sandy Bay, its existence, et cetera. And this is partially, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, the part of the process of positive thinking here, because it would bring the moorings back into their real alignment so as not to infringe by swing onto adjacent properties, nor cause the aforementioned possible collisions. Is that close to accurate, Joe?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think we don't have the benefit of measuring the swing right now as it's winter. But I would bet, just based on the numbers that we provided by the applicant and how those numbers play out with estimated swing, that the current boats on their moorings probably swing in excess of what they're authorized in a violation, thereby requiring a variance. So, what we're trying to do is just be practical and common sense and try to estimate the swing of these as best we can. And in doing so, that would require, a variance even as they're currently using the moorings. So it would kind of reconcile what's probably a longstanding issue with the way we've administered moorings in the past.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps we're ready for a
Excuse me.
resolution, Joe?
Excuse me?
Do I hear somebody?
Yes, my name is Fred Bodie. I'm within the Carriage Hill
Oh,
Association.
okay.
There's one other issue that Kevin didn't mention, resulting with the swing. These moorings, where they're located, are protected by a higher elevation of land and trees, which limits the wind out of the west, which would blow the boats towards the middle of the lake. Really, the swing is only affected to the south, to the west, and to the north. There really isn't any swing out towards the middle of the lake because of the blockage of the wind in that particular area. I just thought I'd add that so you're aware of that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bodie. Everybody needs to know that we operate at a disadvantage because I personally have only limited vision of the faces, so I don't know when someone's attempting to speak sometimes. Commissioner Stanek, do we have a resolution we could read?
Yes. Resolution 2021-02. Applicant number is DWM 20-000091. Applicant is Carriage Hill Lake Club Incorporated. Whereas the applicant has applied for a permit to increase the offshore distance of 3 existing moorings, and whereas the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, and the commission has made a determination pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-3.6 and the State Environmental Quality Review Act of 6 NYCRR 617.5 that the project is a type 2 action, does not require further review of potential environmental impacts pursuant to this act, and the action is considered to be a minor project pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-5.3, and public notice has been published and distributed, and whereas the applicant has requested the variance from 6 NYCRR 646-1.1C and number 12. Moorings shall not be placed so that the full swing of the vessel extends more than 100 feet offshore from the mean high water mark. Whereas the applicant has demonstrated that strict conformance with the regulations will cause unnecessary hardship due to unique and peculiar circumstances which impose substantial financial, technical, and safety burdens. And the commission finds that there is no reasonable possibility that the applicant's property, or if no property is involved, the continuation of the applicant's business, enterprise, use, or activity will bring a reasonable return following conformance with the regulation. And whereas the commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the project of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood of the park or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Park Commission hereby approves the request for variance and approves the above application with the following conditions. Any vessel berthed at the subject moorings shall be improved with a stern light that is illuminated at all times between sunset and sunrise. And number 2, per commission regulations, within 12 months, the Carriage Hill Lake Club shall amend its bylaws to restrict the membership to landowners with a residence in the Lake George Park, and 2, restrict its membership to 18 members, and number 3, restrict boat length at the facility to 27 feet. So moved.
Motion made, motion is seconded, I see. All signify by raising a hand, right or left. And I'm looking and seeing, any nays? There are no nays, so the resolution is passed. Thank you very much. Joe, can you introduce our next resolution, which is the new wharf construction in the town of Bolton along the road known as Cotton Point Road?
Yes, thank you, Ken. So the next application on the agenda is an application for 7 residential docks to serve a 4-lot subdivision along the Cotton Point Road in Bolton. Docks to be located on Basin Bay. It should be noted, the application reflects that it's supported or forwarded rather by Matt Finley, who until recently was the landowner for this property, which is why the application reflects his name. That land has recently been bought by Dave Caruso, who is actually the applicant working on this, and he is represented by Devin Dickinson. I believe I saw Devin signed in, so Devin, I'd invite you to unmute yourself and talk about the application.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So as Joe said, my name is Devin Dickinson from Dickinson and Associates. I'm here on behalf of Mike Caruso, who is the current owner of the property. So I want to give you just a brief background on the property before I jump into the docks. The property consists of 21 acres of undeveloped land with 972 feet of shoreline. The applicant has applied and gotten approval for a 4-lot subdivision that was reviewed by the town of Bolton, the Adirondack Park Agency, New York State Historical Preservation, and the town engineer. Throughout the process, the project was presented to the town showing the current dock proposal that you see in front of you. The home sites are separated from the shoreline by an APA classified wetland and Cotton Point Road. Cotton Point Road is a little bit unique. It's actually owned in fee by Mr. Caruso, which will then be the individual lot owners. The town actually has a deeded right of way for maintenance and public travel. Access to the individual lakefronts will be by walking along Cotton Point Road. So jumping into the docks now, throughout this process, I met multiple times with Molly to discuss the project and to calculate the number of allowable docks. Now that Molly's retired, Joe's jumped in and taken up where Molly's left off, and he's done a great job. So we initially started this following Molly's recommendation. We used the pre-subdivision calculations to determine the number of allowable docks because they were a little more conservative. So with 972 feet of shoreline, that allows 7 docks of any configuration. If we analyze the lots individually, we would be allowed a total of 9 U docks or 5 E docks or some combination of the two. So one of the most important items we want to address is allocating the docks for each lot before these lots are sold to avoid any future issues. So we've presented a plan showing the full potential of the shoreline for multiple reasons. You know, one, we want to clarify and get feedback from the commissioners on how you would like us to analyze the allowable number of docks and shoreline. The other issue is we really want to be able to designate the dock credits for each lot. We really want to clarify this so that in the future, if an owner comes in to apply for an additional dock or a modification, everything is documented. We know who's allowed to do what. So at the recommendation of the board, we are comfortable using either the pre or post subdivision calculations. Now, I know there were numerous letters written into the Park Commission from the community. I believe most really reiterated the same concerns, but I'd like to address some of those comments now. You know, parking was brought up multiple times. There is not going to be any parking on Cotton Point Road. There's signage to that effect on the road right now. The other issue that was brought up was commercial got thrown around a bunch of times there. So these lots are approved for single family residential homes, and the docks will also be used for residential purposes. This is not a commercial development. This is not zone commercial.
Oh, God.
The other considerations were the environmental considerations. So again, the project has been reviewed by the town, the APA, as well as the town engineer. They've met all the requirements for the subdivision. More specifically to the docks, the lake bed in this area is sandy with little to no growth, which is ideal for dock construction. And also, the docks were designed to have very minimal disturbance on shoreline. We have a very small access ramp to the docks from shore with the intent of protecting the shoreline as much as possible. Another issue that was raised was dock construction. Not all of these docks will be constructed at the same time. Some homeowners are going to build sooner than others, depending on approval process. Also, the dock builders' schedules will dictate a lot of when these docks can be constructed. But the main point here really is that this is not going to be in a perpetual state of dock construction. Moving through the comments here. So sun decks were brought up as well in the comments. These house sites are separated from the lake and docks by Cotton Point Road. This is typical of other areas in Lake George, like Assembly Point, places in Hague, Pilot Knob, etc. So in a case like this, a sun deck will provide protection for the boats while also offering additional space to relax and enjoy the lake. I think without having an area to do that on land, that's very critical. We feel like it's an important aspect of this plan. Another issue that was brought up was boat congestion. Obviously, everyone knows this is a bay. People like to moor up and hang out. We feel that having some permanent residence and dock structures may dissuade people from mooring in the bay and walking to shore. In doing the survey work, I saw plenty of people moor and walk up to the shore and all sorts of things. So we're hoping this may alleviate some of that traffic. And I think the 4 lots will not generate a significant amount of boat traffic. If you think of just 4 single family homes, you're not going to generate that much boat traffic. Another issue that was raised by the staff and the community were the water depths. So I was out yesterday and measured some water depths in 2 different places along the shoreline. We found there to be a minimum of 3 feet of water at the end of the docks. And this is in reference to the target lake elevation of 319.56. Although it's not deep water, it is sufficient for any reasonable sized boat. And as a bonus, may deter owners from, purchasing larger cruisers and things like that. One of the big issues that was raised was the dock density and the build out. Somebody had submitted a conceptual plan that was out of scale, showing these big, huge dock structures and all those things. So I prepared a plan with an aerial overlay to show the existing dock structures in the immediate area, as well as our proposed docks. So where Cotton Point is very congested and overdeveloped, we really feel that our plan fits well with the properties to the north that are a little more spread out and less congested. There's a mix of uses in the bay, both residential and commercial. There's a marina right next to this property. There's a mix of docks and boathouses. So we really feel that this plan does fit well with the current neighborhood and development. So in conclusion, really our main goal is to get a dock approved for each lot while also determining the remaining dock credits. That's a big key. We've presented the full build to show transparency of what the project potential could be, while also hoping to allocate, which lots get what docks. And we feel that this plan takes into consideration the environment, the local zoning codes, and we feel that it really fits in with the character of the neighborhood. So that's it for me. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Before I shoot myself in the foot here, Justin, we have a bunch of folks in our audience who may have some concerns or some support for this. About how many do we have?
So I can't give you an exact number of people. I can tell you that there are 82 participants in this meeting, which is the largest meeting we've had possibly
Wow.
since the pandemic started. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to say and reiterate, and Joe Thune can back me up on this. I believe we have all the public comments in the written record at this point. So if you're here to make a comment about this project and you've already submitted your comments in writing, we have those comments and they have been reviewed. So they're, if you wouldn't mind refraining from commenting, that would help kind of keep this meeting under 4 hours long. So in addition to that, in an effort to facilitate organizing the public comments from those of you who do wish to speak, if you do wish to speak, would you please send me your name in the chat, and I'll start making a list of folks who want to comment, and then I will call on you, and then we can kind of go from there when we get to the public comments portion. I think that'll help kind of keep a little bit more order.
Okay, thank you. While we're queuing up some comments, why don't I question the commissioners, especially those that made a site visit. Joe Stanek, you're my first immediate picture.
Okay, I guess I'm concerned with having possibly 2 docks with up to maybe 8 boats associated with a single family. I have a hard time believing that a single family is going to have 8 boats potentially. So I have a fairly substantial concern about limiting that number of boats associated with a single, because remember, there's no parking, there's no facilities there at the shoreline. So it's going to be very difficult to manage that kind of space if you're using with 8 boats.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Bill Mason, you're next on my scenario. Bill, are you there? Can you unmute yourself?
Well, I guess I agree with Joe. When I looked at the plan and when we went to the site visit, putting that number of docks on that length of shoreline, while it might be legal or it might fit within our guidelines, it looks to me commercial. It looks to me like there's going to be a lot of boats there, and I don't mean to get into an argument with the applicant that whether it's residential, whether it's commercial. It just seems like it doesn't make sense to me to have a residential lot with 2 E-shaped docks that would have the potential of 8 boats. So that's my biggest concern.
Say that again, please.
Thank you. Mr. Nisha, you're next in my purview.
I have some sympathy for the tax burden that people with large amounts of lakefront have to face. But I think this is a reasonable compromise with attaching the boathouse, the 4 boathouses, to the building lots. All in all, I think it's a reasonable compromise, and that's what we should go with.
Thank you. Kathy LaBombard, can you unmute yourself?
Thanks, Ken. I almost forgot. I feel the same as my 3 colleagues here. And to get 70 or more letters that are against this, and they all have viable explanations why they are against the project. Yes, I think what Jim Nisha just said, we have a good means to compromise here, and the land can be used, the docks can be put out, but not as many, one per lot.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Commissioner Floyd, I can't see you, but are you still here with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, I visited the property also, and the APA has approved the subdivision of the 4 lots. That's a done deal, and the building sites are approved, and all of that is done by the APA and by Bolton Landing. I understand the road. There's no parking on that road, but I think that those lots should be entitled to a dock, with the possibility, if they require another dock in the future, that they could come back to us again and say, hey, look, we do have the footage for another dock, and here's why we need it. But I would think that I agree with everybody else that we should limit it to 1 dock per lot at this time.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I know
Yes.
that you were trying to move this along a little bit, but I think what we should do at this point is allow the public to comment before the commission makes any, its determination, because you don't know what the public is going to comment about. So I
Right.
think it would be important. And then what I would recommend, Mr. Vice Chairman, is after the public comment, ask everyone again, even though you've already asked some of the commissioners, ask them again, because I want to make sure that the public and the applicant have their full say here.
Thank you, Counselor. Justin, I'm now going to rely on you. Thank you.
Oh, all right. So I've received, 9 names so far, and I'm going to kind of go out of order, just based on the fact that I think we should probably hear from counsel for the applicant first, or the applicant. So Robert Greger is is counsel, I believe. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, sir, you can speak.
Yes, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name's Robert and Greger. I'm representing Mr. Caruso in this matter, who's the applicant. I put myself on as for speaking more to answer any questions that people have from a legal perspective. Certainly, Mr. Dickinson gave a rather thorough and elaborate analysis. So in the interest of time, I don't want to be redundant, but at the same point in time, I'll hang back and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have or anybody else may have.
Okay, thank you. Matt Finley, you're up next.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm also addressing my 150 neighbors who wrote to comment about this, and I wish we had met in a different way. The most important thing I have to tell you is that I have had no role whatever in the design of these docks. Over 2 years ago, my co-owner and I negotiated a contract to sell this property to Mr. Caruso. At that time, the sales agreement was for 3 lots and 3 docks. He then proceeded to get the approval from the town and the APA for 4 lots. So my written comments support his application for what you are now calling a compromise, which is 4 docks, 1 dock for each of the lots. My name is on the application, and I hope you'll give me a moment to just comment on that. As a co-owner, apparently the Park Commission chose not to put my co-owner's name on this application, but only mine. And so my reputation has taken quite a hit here. I hope it's very apparent to everyone that I had no role in this application. My family owned this property for 92 years, paid taxes on almost 1,000 feet of lakefront, and never developed anything. So when it comes down now to protecting the property, I'm the one who put in the buoys at 200 feet, and that permit was issued to me, which means it's not transferable to the new owner. Keep that in mind. I also was the one who went to the town to get the no parking ordinance, which benefits all those neighbors who commented. The last thing I would want to ask is about the power. And there's no power, there's no electric power there. There's power on either side of the property, but in order to get power, such as to fuel ice eaters, you would have to cross APA wetland. And so I think that the commission needs to consider that. Without ice eaters, I predict that those docks will be thoroughly destroyed. This is an area that's open to northeast storms, and we get heavy rolling swells in there. So that's something that concerns me about the depth of the water. Although Devin Dickinson said that you'd have 3 feet, I wonder if that's enough, because even further north in a more protected area of the bay where I live, I still have my boat bottom out in any kind of a northeaster. And the part of the bay that gets the brunt of it is the part that is owned by Mr. Caruso now. So those are my comments. I'm worried about the power. I'm worried about the water depth in that location. And therefore, I think the dock would have to be 100 feet out in order to make it effective. Thank you.
Mr. Finley, on behalf of the Park Commission, thanks for your candor on that. And if I can't imagine us making an error on name on the application because someone else makes out the application. So we lived with what we have, but if we did make an error, we do apologize for that. So thank you.
No, sir, you did not make an error. It was a
Okay.
procedural thing having to do with the contract of sale.
Okay.
Our contract of sale to Mr. Caruso was that he had to get the approval for the subdivisions before we could complete the sale, close the sale, and we have done that. But the APA technically required that an application be presented to you. The APA did not rule on the application. They just wanted to know that it was turned in. And at that time, I was still a owner of the property. So your staff did not make a mistake. And I do appreciate the opportunity to correct the record that I had no role in this dock plan.
Thank you very much. Justin?
Next person to make a comment would be Craig Rivers. Craig, if you want to unmute yourself and comment, feel free.
Morning, Craig Rivers. Matt and I, families have been neighbors for 100 years because my family's owned the Grove on Lake George since about 1922. So the lake, as you know, in 2015, it was indicated by the Lake George Park Commission that the bay is already in overuse with more boats per acre than recommended by the Lake George Park Commission. So to add what I consider a commercial boathouse system housing up to 28 boats for 4 residences, I would think one boathouse would house 4 boats. And so that's a concern. My other is egress from the boathouses. After a day on the roofs of these boathouses, having beverage, enjoying the day on the lake, they egress immediately into a public road with no walkways. And the only toilet facilities available would either be the wetlands or the lake. It's a half a mile from the very end of Conport Road where the Provost property is to the entrance to their home. So for them to walk a half a mile every time to use the facilities to their homes, obviously isn't going to happen. And also the egress into a public thoroughfare is a bit concerning to me. And I sent this to Joe. I think Joe got the picture, and Matt knows this as well. The road is so narrow that 2 cars can't even pass each other if there's one pedestrian on the road. One car has to yield, allow the car to go by.
Forgot about the, what happened?
Sorry, he's muted now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
So the person's walking on the road, vehicles have to yield to that pedestrian. Now we're going to add 28 boat slips with 50 or 60 people egressing out of that boathouse immediately onto a roadway and no walkway. So safety is an issue. How will they bring boating equipment and people down to the boathouse? They're not going to walk a half a mile. They're going to have to drive down, unload their daily picnic baskets or whatever for the day, and then drive their car back a half a mile. I assume they'll probably come onto my property or Hemlock Point property to park, other than having to walk a half a mile. So no facilities for people to use. Traffic is a concern. If there's cars parked along that road to even empty supplies for the day for boating, an emergency vehicle to the over 80 houses located on Cotton Point and South Beach. How would an emergency vehicle, a fire truck, get by there? I think a lot of you know that there's quite a few full-time year-round residents on that, many elderly people, including myself, that live on that. And if emergency vehicles are needed with that foot traffic and or autos driving down that road, it's a real concern to me. So I see it as a commercial endeavor, a money-making operation, and I'm not sure why, again, 4 houses need 28 dock spaces. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, next I have Tim Lyons. Tim, if you want to unmute yourself and speak, you may.
Great, thank you very much. When we first received the proposal, we're at the end of Cotton Point Road, a place called Pleasant Waters, and it seemed like it was impacting the wetlands a lot, and that was our main concern. And Mr. Caruso really addressed that in his presentation, that you know, a lot of the traffic will actually go along Cotton Point Road. So, and the commission seems to be well aware of those issues. And so while I agree, you know, maybe 28 docks, it seems pretty commercial. It seems like there's some compromise in the works where those 4 houses as of right get the right amount of dock space. And that's fine with my family who I represent. So long as, and they should have the roof space as well. It seems like if you're going to be separated from where your house is to get to enjoy the lake, is just common sense. So thanks so much for your detailed presentation today, and good luck on your decision.
Thank you. John Roche, you're next.
Can you hear me?
Yes, John.
Yes, good morning. I'm John Roach, president of the Cotton Point Association. Before I just address a couple of comments, I would request clarification on your resolution 2021-03. And I've heard a lot of discussion already this morning from Mr. Dickinson and some of the commissioners and other folks regarding whether we're talking about 4 docks that you tie a boat up to, or boats, or boat houses with sun decks that potentially would have multiple boats there. Can someone clarify for me if this resolution is specifically dock, or is it boat houses? Because I'm hearing 2 different things. One is more concerning than disconcerting than the other.
Joe, can you respond to that?
I can clarify quickly. So as you'll note, the application is for 7 docks with boathouses. By commission regulation, boathouse isn't a definition. So when we say dock, when docks are referenced right now, it's with respect to the application, which is covered docks. So, and you'll note the draft resolution, which is public information in advance of all meetings. That also references dock in the context of this application. So that at the moment is referencing covered docks, but we're still obviously early in this discussion. So we'll see what additional comments come with respect to covered docks and the board's consideration for that.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Also, Mr. Finley did echo a very important point, whether it's docks, boathouses, sun decks, relative to the electric and bringing it there. I'm not going to, I just wanted to reiterate our concern about that aspect. You know, our members, in addition to South Beach Association, the Grove, Hemlock Point, and other residents of Basin Bay and surrounding areas, have submitted in excess of 90 individual letters in opposition to the Finley application for the 7 covered E-shaped crib docks. Additionally, you folks have received letters from the town of Bolton, the Lake George Waterkeeper, Saratoga Associates, who did the depiction of what this might look like, and others with very strong concerns regarding this application. It's obvious from all the letters submitted in opposition to this application and strong feelings expressed that this application should be denied or significantly readjusted downward. When I look at your resolution, and I look at down at the bottom, the draft conditions, all of which are very good. If these were adopted, then are these draft conditions potentially would be part of the final resolution if this is approved as it stands?
No, sir. Ken Parker here. The resolution as prepared prior to the meeting serves a purpose to assist commissioners on some variables. So that might be an outline of the thought process to get to a resolution for approval or non-approval, but it also could include the fact that we add other conditions or delete some conditions. So that's not what we may be voting on that per se. I don't have it in front of me, but the odds are that if it were to be voted on today, that there would be some changes in those draft resolutions.
Thank you very much for that. I would strongly urge the commission to consider those 4 draft conditions and also to really look at dock, as I interpreted dock, to tie a boat up to without boathouses and sun decks. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, Chris Novitsky, you're next.
Thank you, Justin. I just want to say hats off to you, Justin. You're doing you got your hands full on this one. So thank you. Good morning, commissioners. I did submit written comments, just a couple additions to that, if I could, please. Regarding the local review, the town of Bolton, and, you know, to my knowledge, and I attend most of those planning board meetings, the dock complexes were not part of the submission. And I think that that's a key aspect. I think that there's some planning, local planning issues that should be brought in. There were just references by the planning board chairman in their December meeting on how they plan to access the lake from these lots. It says nothing about docks. So I don't think the docks were actually shown. And they replied that they would be walking down Cotton Point Road and there'd be no parking. So again, I don't think the town was aware of the amount of docks. And clearly it seems that there is a higher number of docks than typically for a residential property. Regarding, I think the congestion issue was raised by a previous speaker, but again, the 2015 recreational user study shows that the density in Bolton Bay was 2 acres per boat, which is 1/3 of the 6 acres that is used as a kind of metric for boat capacity. And I believe that the boating capacity is even further increased with the success of the Blue Water Manor in Basin Bay. And I think that that's a key aspect. So I think there's more information that commissioners may want to seek to before they make a decision on this. And I just think that the town really didn't have enough to review. I think there was information raised by Mr. Finley on power, such things, other planning aspects that should be brought into this before a decision is made. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Justin,
Brett
I've
Lynn?
lost you. I can't
Nope.
see you anymore, Justin. So
I'm still here.
Yes,
Okay.
hello. Hi, this is Brett Lynn. Can you turn that off, please? This is Brett Lynn. I'm a resident of the Grove. Most of my concerns have already been enunciated. I just had a few observations in addition to the written comments that I made. But after reading the report that I think was generated by the board, it only raises my concerns. It seems to me that the projection of additional boat traffic of 10 boats per week based on a 4-lot subdivision with 7 crib docks is completely unrealistic. You know, with 7 docks of the size that they are, I agree with Craig that this is looking more like a commercial venture than a residential one. And it just is suspect to me that so much is being asked for, and the projections of just an additional 10 boat trips per week is being projected. That's completely unrealistic. It's looking more like a commercial venture to me. And the difficulty I have with that is that it's going to attract an awful lot of transient vehicular and boat traffic. People who don't have the same kind of impetus to protect the area that residences do. So in addition to my comments, that's basically all that I want to say right now.
Okay.
Okay, Judith Resnick.
Thank you. And hello, many of the people who are on this screen are neighbors. My family's also lived in the Basin Bay, the Bay, for more than 60 years. And I kayak and kayak in front of, and hello, Matt, it's lovely to see you. I kayak in front of and walk those roads and have ever since I could walk and hope to continue for as long as I can walk. So I also want to just add comments. We've submitted written comments that come after that. The first is that I learned, and this dovetails with what Chris raised, that there are very serious discrepancies between what was submitted to the town for its authorization of the to the shore jurisdiction and what was provided that all of us were shown as the proposal with the large dock expansion. And those discrepancies, as I understand it, were, and I believe that I know that the town has sent you, the commission, a letter reporting some of them, but just to flag, essentially, the town understood itself as receiving, as I understand it, a subdivision, and Matt, thank you for all the years of maintaining this waterfront amazingly, that was to be minor residential, and there was no submission of the major docks that were first put before you. So there is moreover this outsized dock plan, and already in Basin Bay, and several of us here, not just me, have gone to both the Park Commission and to the town repeatedly because there's a problem about policing. Once you have a lot of docks, unauthorized marina activity not only could go on, but has gone on in a very worrisome way. And the policing of it is very difficult. We've been to the Park Commission with chapter and verse pictures several times. And so that this size expansion raises the specter of the problem that would become a Park Commission problem, that the dock, the quantity can't work. The third question is that now that there's been discussed since the meeting opened this compromise, I had understood, but I'm hardly expert in your procedure, that the record was closed on January 14th. And now we have new descriptions of depths and projections and new projects. So in light of the potential for some compromise, it would seem that it would be important to table and recommit, one, to return to the town so that the town can understand what either was not described to it correctly or that what was described is the only thing in question. Second, to resolve discrepancies. Third, to get those who respond to, respond to the discrepancies with the town. And then for those of us who looked up to the 14th, to be able to put in more information, including the questions of power and safety. So it seems that in light of the serious questions that are raised and underscored by several of the prior speakers, that at this point it's premature to come to a conclusion that would ensure the safety and the flourishing of the lake and of the people who can all enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Barb McDowell, I have you next.
Hi, I'm on the board of Cotton Point Association with John Roach, and I've also been a longstanding member of, as a homeowner on Cotton Point. And a lot of my comments that I was going to mention were just addressed and fully support in a negative fashion proceeding with the current plans for 7 docks. And just to comment aside, you know, I agree with Craig 100% with his comments, but Devin mentioned something about, well, there's signs for no parking and there's also buoys for the 200-foot markers. So I challenge anyone to go out in the middle of the summer and see that those parking signs and those buoys are adhered to. We've tried to report it, and it gets to a point where it's really such a quantity of boats and quantity of traffic on such a tiny road that it sustained significant damage from ice a number of years ago. And actually we were closed off as a community from driving on that road because of construction. You know, we walk that, everyone that lives down there walks that road with some trepidation because of the amount of traffic. And when I have to walk my grandchildren on that road and see people relieving themselves into the wetlands or onto the side of the lake because they've been on their boats all day, it brings me great pause to even think that 7 docks in a community of only 4 homes might be possibly approved is really, as people have said, very disconcerting. So thank you for your time, and I hope you would consider that.
Okay, I have Holly next. Holly, can you unmute yourself and let us know what your last name is? You're still muted, Holly.
How's that?
There you go.
Okay. I'm Holly Provost. My property and my family's property is adjacent to the proposed project. I did send a letter, but in hearing everyone else speak, some things come to mind. And Matt made a good point. I think it was Matt, about the docks being protected by bubblers. We have one dock, and we take it out every year. And my battery's running low. Can you get that? It's over there. I'm sorry, my battery's running out on my computer. We take it out every year because of the damage that is caused by the ice. We've had our dock taken out many years by the wind. I don't know if the people that are planning to build there understand the depth of
We may have just lost her. So if she comes back, maybe we'll circle back to her. John Caffrey, I have you next.
Hi, John Caffrey from Caffrey and Flower in Glens Falls. And we represent Jenny Brorson, who's a property owner on Cotton Point Road. We think this application needs to be denied. We submitted a letter, which I'm sure you've seen, so I won't repeat it, and a visual impact report from Matt Allen, who is a leading expert on the subject. And it's pretty clear from Mr. Allen's report that the project as proposed is going to have undue adverse visual impacts, which under your regulations requires that it be denied. Now, we've heard some talk about 4 docks being a potential compromise, but what you don't have is any evidence before you that a change from potentially 7 docks to 4 docks is going to mitigate that impact sufficiently to avoid an undue impact. And without further analysis, there's no way for you to make that determination. And for instance, a number of the project visualizations that Mr. Allen prepared only show some of the docks, and you can still see that it's a significant impact. I won't repeat everything, but I would like that other people have said, but in the parking issue, who's going to enforce that realistically? And Mr. Dickinson mentioned this being similar to the Assembly Point Road, where you have a narrow strip of land and the lake and the houses are on the other side of the road. Well, I'm very familiar with that neighborhood, and there is a homeowners association there called the Shore Colony. People in that association who have a much shorter walk than these people would have drive down there, park along the side of the road, block traffic. They leave baby strollers out there. They drive golf carts, which of course are not road legal, and they park them there along the guardrail. And no matter what Mr. Dickinson and Mr. Caruso say, that's what's going to happen. And who's going to be down there all the time? Do you want your enforcement staff to be down there all the time, having to tell people to move their golf carts? As somebody else pointed out, there's nowhere to turn around. If people come and drop off their family or whatever, where are they going to turn around? There's no public turnarounds. They're going to be in people's driveways all the time. Nobody's really mentioned the problem with invasive species, especially Asian clams in the bay. There's been that many people have pointed out. There's nothing showing that that's been addressed, or that 4 docks instead of 7 will alleviate that problem. On the question of whether or not this is commercial or not, even if they're residential docks right now, there's nothing to stop these people from coming back later and applying for a Class A marina permit. Mr. Finley has a Class A marina permit. In the town of Bolton, they can, I believe, have up to 2 boats at a Class A marina. So you have these, at a marina, that you consider a Class A and the town doesn't consider to be a marina. So you could have one of these E-shaped docks that'll hold up to 4 boats. The homeowners could have 2, they could rent out 2 more under the town zoning. So we shouldn't assume that just because these are single family houses, they're only going to have 1 boat. Mr. Dickinson brought up the question of how many are allowed. Do you use the pre-subdivision shore length, or do you use the post-subdivision? Your regulations allow you to look at the pre-subdivision length, which in this case would yield a lesser amount. I think that's one thing that ought to be determined when this application eventually gets voted on, whether it's voted up or voted down, that it's going to be limited to a maximum based on the pre-subdivision shore length. One thing that hasn't been addressed here today is that some of these lots are proposed for 2 E-shaped docks. That's a violation of the dimensional requirements of the regulations. Regarding the town's letter requests that the commission take no further action until the town gets to take a look at this. And I think that's important because it may be that they show docks on their application, but none of the other issues were brought before the town. The town doesn't have jurisdiction over docks per se, but they certainly have jurisdiction over the upland aspects. The applicant has just submitted these 2 new maps that were just posted yesterday. It's first, I think they're even dated yesterday. The one on the water depths, so nobody's really had a chance to check out their accuracy or anything. But the one on the water depth shows it's maybe 3 feet deep at that point. I think the practical experience of the neighbors who have longer docks shows that that's not adequate there. As far as dock density, sure, there's other docks in the area, but none of them are directly next to the designated scenic travel corridor, which is identified in the town of Bolton's zoning ordinance, and which, as Mr. Allen's report shows, is a significant factor in the visual impact analysis. So it's a big difference to put docks in this currently undeveloped wetland area compared to what's already there on either side of the bay. I don't think the proposed conditions in the draft resolution from the staff solve any of the problems that have been identified. For instance, it just says maximum of 1. It doesn't say which of the docks on each lot would be built. They don't cure the visual impacts, as I discussed. There's still no power, no bathrooms. People are going to be peeing in the lake, peeing in the woods. Face it, that's what's going to happen with this facility. And what will happen too is over time, people are going to come back in, these homeowners, and they'll apply for that second dock, or they'll apply for whatever, a marina permit. So they're just going to come back in and basically get piecemeal what's been proposed here already by this applicant. And what I'd like to say is that we ought to consider other alternatives. These properties, these houses, technically may own a little sliver of lakefront next to the road, but they're not really lakefront houses. And there's many other places around the lake where you have an association with a shared dock. The example I gave on Assembly Point is one. I'm sure there's others around Basin Bay and elsewhere. There's no entitlement to have your own private personal dock. I think the applicant, Mr. Caruso, should go back and examine alternatives, such as having one shared dock that could hold all 4 of these boats, or one boat for all 4 of these lots. That would allow these people to have a boat, and it would significantly reduce all the other impacts and create a much better situation. They ought to examine that alternative. Just because they put the cart before the horse and got their subdivision approved before they came to the commission for the dock permit doesn't mean they can't go back and get the subdivision amended.
that's been.
The and other alternatives are smaller docks instead of the big E-shaped docks. You could go with a U-shaped dock. You could have no roofs. There's a lot of alternatives that haven't been examined here. So I think that as it stands, this application needs to be denied under your regulations. There's a lot of unaddressed issues that would have to be resolved before any vote could be taken. I think it needs to be tabled and sent to the drawing board, or else sent to a public hearing and let it get sorted out in that type of forum. But certainly as proposed, or even with 4 big E-shaped docks, given the sensitive location here and the problematic location, just way too much to approve at this time, even at 4 docks. So, thank you.
Okay, Holly, we lost you, but I see that you're back. Would you like to finish speaking?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment again about the electricity and that these docks would have to be bubbled. And because there's no electricity, I guess they can't be. So what happens to these docks when they have to take them out every fall, like we do every year? We park our docks, and our neighbors next door, Greg Rivers, they bring all their docks onto their property. Where do these people put their docks? There's no, the docks as they are now with no electricity can't exist in that bay. The northwest wind, or the north wind and the northwest wind, come into that bay. You have no idea. Well, the people that live there know, but unless you live there, you don't know. We've lost our docks several times. Boats have come loose from our mooring, crashing up onto the shore. They have no idea. It may look beautiful, but there is hazard out there. And I'd also like to bring, many of you didn't talk about the ecological and the environmental impact of this. People peeing in the lake, we see it all the time. We sit there and watch boat after boat come in. People climb up onto our docks. It's just adding fuel to the fire. And as a neighbor of this, I just can't bear it. My family grew up here. I'm slowly watching Lake George just deteriorate by man, and it's very heartbreaking to me. And I hope you reconsider this this project. That road can't support the traffic that you're talking about, and people are not going to walk to their boats. I know that. I've lived the life. I lived in South Beach for many years. People take their motorcycle or their little golf cart or their whatever. You cannot walk to your boat and carry all the stuff you need. It's just a fact. So I hope you can reconsider this. Everybody's made great points, great points. Thank you.
Okay, next I have Alan Fine.
Hi, I'm speaking on behalf of my family, which has owned property to the west of this proposed set of docks for in the neighborhood of 75 years. And I agree with every one of the points made by our Cotton Point neighbors and others who will feel more vulnerable to this proposal than the rest of us. But I want to emphasize a couple of things. One is the traffic in the bay. The 2015 study, which said that the bay was vulnerable to the amount of traffic already, is grossly outdated. We've seen a sea change, if you will, in the amount of boats in the bay since the advent of the Blue Water Manor restaurant and bar and the success that Mr. Kelly has had with that. We don't begrudge that success, but it's changed the nature of the bay entirely, with boats coming in and out all day long and into the evenings. So the situation is far worse than even the LGPC felt it was back in 2015 when it said that it was a vulnerable situation. We've also experienced the inability of the LGPC to police the marina activity in the bay. And I'm not casting blame on it. It's impossible to police it once it's ongoing, whether it's permitted or not. And as you know, we've had an ongoing issue on the west side of the bay with the illegal marina at Coolidge for many years. And the LGPC has had to monitor that situation, has been brought in many times. They just simply cannot police it. Boats are docked there and you can't get them out once they're there. You can't control how many rental spaces there are, how they're used. So I think the notion that this could become a marina is very dangerous because there's no stopping it at that point, regardless of what the rules and regulations are, and regardless of the intent and the goodwill of the LGPC and others to try to police it. And then lastly, I would just say, I have not been to LGPC meetings before, but it strikes me that when you have, you know, upwards of 90 people who contributed to the record in opposition to this, you have, you know, some 70 people or so who are, or 50 to 70 people or so who are on this phone call in opposition to this, that the town is saying this is not the proposal we approved. That it would be irresponsible to approve it in direct contravention of the intent, the desires of all of those people who live in that area to stop the project. I don't think that the 4-dock solution is going to solve many of the problems that people have brought up, as Mr. Caffrey noted in his excellent summary. A lot of those problems are still going to exist. So, and obviously we, the public, have not had an opportunity to comment in writing on that proposal in any event. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Bill Montana.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for everyone taking their time here. Resident of Lake George my whole life, of Cotton Point for many, many, many years. I just want to explicitly state that this should be denied in its entirety. You know, people have sort of alluded to it. I just want to state it as clearly as possible. It should be denied. It will be very bad for the community. The proposed compromise of 4 docks will not solve the very serious issues and should not be allowed. The homeowners cannot walk a half a mile and carry stuff to their boats. It just won't happen. It's physically impossible. So they will use cars, they will use golf carts, and they will block traffic, causing serious issues with pedestrians, with the residents, blocking emergency vehicles. It'll be a nightmare scenario for all the residents and for the authorities to have to enforce. It's very clear that the developer is going to come back to look to get marina permits. It's clear as day what their intention is. This should be denied. You've got an inordinate pushback on this from residents and from the town of Bolton. And the committee should acknowledge this and deny it in its entirety. And just lastly, on the environmental front, it was mentioned that this is a sandy bay. It used to be sandy. It is now turning to muck. Our home, which used to be full sand, is now a foot plus of muck, and it's starting to form the area along the road here from stuff leaking into the lake and from the sediment that's kicked up by the really huge volume of boats. Deny this in its entirety, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, up next I have Kath Doheny.
Hi there. I also live on Cotton Point, and I think Mr. Caffrey summarized a lot of the points that I had fairly well. I'd just like to say that the very first time that we've seen this compromise was this morning. And I'd also like the opportunity to send this back to the town, and I think it would be premature for the commissioners to make any decision at this point other than to put it on hold and send it back to the town for further discussion. So thank you very much. That's it.
Okay, at this point, that's the end of the list of folks who've sent me their name, indicating that.
Okay, Justin, can you hear me? It's Jeff Brosda. I'm president of South Beach Association. Could I just have 1 minute?
Sure, go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. We have 31 members. They are all in opposition. I haven't talked to anybody who's in favor of this. We sent in a letter, so I won't repeat the points, but just a couple comments. With the electricity installation that came up today, Mr. Finley's point to support that. Our electrically minded people agree there's no way to get power in there without disturbing the wetlands, and the impacts on the highway. Yes, it's a no parking zone, but clearly the reality is that is not enforced. I haven't seen a tow truck down there hauling anybody out of the no parking zone ever. So the congestion on the road, the congestion on the lake with the boats, these concerns remain, and we remain opposed. We request that it be rejected. We point out we point out that the calculations for E-shaped boathouses based on frontage are not a matter of right. When you look at your own regulations, 646-1.6A, you have the power to reject this in its totality based on the negative impacts, and the negative impacts are substantial. So we remain opposed. The proposed compromise by the staff, and we appreciate the work that the staff does. They work very hard, and it's a conscientious effort. However, I'm sure my membership would be in opposition and would continue to oppose the application. However, the definition of 4 docks, the word dock in your compromise proposal, I would say, urge very strongly, should be interpreted as it is in the Webster Dictionary. It's 4 docks, not 4 boathouses. So I would want to go on record in that regard. But we do remain completely opposed to that compromise, and we remain opposed to the application, period.
Thank you. Next, I have Chris Bevilacqua.
Thank you. Just want to make one quick comment. I agree with all of the comments that were made, but I'm a frequent swimmer, paddleboard, kayak in that area, have a cabin in the Grove. Water safety there has really become very difficult with all of the boat traffic and all of the boats that moor there. When Mr. Finley spoke, he said that in order to put docks there, they'd have to go out 100 feet. If any of the docks are approved, you're really looking at a very dangerous situation with the boat traffic. In your own water study that was done, you said it's an excellent area for swimming, which it is. Unfortunately, if you increase the boat traffic there, you're really looking at a serious water safety issue, in addition to all of the other issues that were mentioned. So I just wanted to bring that up because I'm not the only one who swims and kayaks and paddleboards there. There are numerous people who do, and it would create such a dangerous situation there. Thank you. That's all I needed to add.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Most folks are muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself before you comment.
Robert Greger, on behalf of Mr. Caruso, I'd just like to address a couple of the points that were made today. If I may have a moment of the board's time.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Specifically, broadly speaking, there really hasn't been anything today presented that's unique to this particular project. And let me explain what I mean by that. We've heard a fair amount of concerns about lake usage, about problems that exist already. The board must note that these docks don't exist, so whatever problems are there have nothing to do with this proposed development. With respect to the concerns of additional people making use of the lake, whether it's for urinating in the lake or the wetlands, I believe was one of the concerns raised, additional traffic. Mr. Dickinson in his opening remarks made a very salient point. He made the point that right now, what we have is a bay that people will typically moor up to and presumably engage in all this unseemly conduct that has been cited by members today or by commenters today. If that's already occurring, the presence of these docks will diminish the amount of transients, diminish the amount of people going around and abusing the lake. What you'll have here is 4 sets of homeowners who have a vested interest in that community, in that area, making use of that property. If anything, it'll cause a more socially responsible governance over that area than exists now. Right now, it's a vacant area for anyone to use as they please. And your own commentators today have made note of this, how bad an issue it is now. So if anything, I would ask that this board seriously consider passing the resolutions and letting us move on, because it will protect the lake more so than what we have right now. Thank you.
All right, it's
Justin?
anyone else wish to speak?
I just wanted to just add that I think I'm not muted now.
Yep.
This comment raises a fact about the facts, which are there many disputed facts before the commission right now. And in light of the factual disagreements about the substantive impact on power, safety, water quality, neighborhood, etc., it seems that to proceed before all these facts are resolved and new facts entered into the record 2 days ago or yesterday, it would really be premature to come to a resolution to accept. And then some people have said to you, the only thing to do is to reject or to remit. But there have just been raised a whole host of facts about what impact this would have. Thank you.
Now, Justin, who was that was just speaking?
That was Judith Resnick.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'd say 45 anyways.
Justin?
Yep. Go
Devin
ahead,
Dickinson, can I just kind of respond to some of these comments briefly here before you break, or are you going to break now?
No, Devin, can you hang on for a second? Justin,
Sure.
How many more speakers do we have?
I don't have anyone who's reached
Okay.
out left on my list. That doesn't mean that there's somebody who's on the phone that doesn't have the chat function that wishes to speak.
Well, based on that, then, Devin, our normal process is that once we've heard from those in favor or speaking on the subject, we'll then come back to you. So apparently I interrupted you, and we're now back to you for some comments. You don't need to respond to everyone. I'm sure we had some, but if you have some key points that you'd care to make to the commissioners, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Ken. I did not present this project to the town. I did not do the engineering for this project. I did the surveying. But I know that probably almost a year ago or more, it was requested that we show the dock plan as I discussed with Molly on that subdivision plan. So my understanding is that was submitted to the town at some capacity throughout that process. So that's one of the points I want to make. The other point I want to make is, my aunt and uncle have a house in the Outer Banks. I've been going there since I was a little kid. People walk much further distances than this to get to the ocean. There's no parking there. This is classic. People drag trailers and carts and, whatever down to the beach. So I don't think this is unheard of to be able to walk to these docks. We probably could all use a little more walking. The other thing is I really want to make clear that, a big part of what this application is trying to sort through these dock credits. We're not necessarily saying we want to get 7 docks approved immediately. Some of these new owners may only want a straight dock. We're really trying to do the bookkeeping. We've tried to be transparent with this to say, look, this is the potential of the property. Again, I think a dock being approved for each lot is a very reasonable compromise. If someone wants to come back in the future and apply for more, they'd have to go in front of the board anyways, and there is no guarantee. The other thing I want to do too, this is really just for informational purposes, but everybody's talked about this dock density in the shoreline and how many docks it is. If you take this similar 972 feet of shoreline and head south into the Cotton Point Association, there's 13 or 14 docks that encompasses. I feel like this plan, even at the 7 docks, is that's half the density in the same shoreline. So I don't think it's unreasonable for a dock on each lot and to have the homeowners be able to come back if they want more. I do a tremendous amount of permitting around the lake. There are, people who are boat aficionados that have multiple boats. It's not uncommon that I approve more than 1 dock on a property. I understand people's concern. Change is a difficult thing. I understand this proposal seems overwhelming, but that's not necessarily what we are trying to accomplish today. With any subdivision in new lots, we have to do some bookkeeping here so that they don't all come in and race to apply for docks. So I think those were the only real comments that I wanted to address there. I think Mr. Gregor also responded to the issues you have with people mooring and walking. Like I said, when I was surveying, I witnessed it myself. I think these docks will help to police that. Those are really the only comments I think I needed to respond to that weren't covered.
Thank you, Devin. I'd like to take this opportunity before I lose anybody to thank everybody for taking the time to comment and research that different folks have done. I'd like to have you rest assured that the Park Commission takes everything that's said into consideration. At this time, assuming, Justin, that we don't have any more viable speakers, did I see your hand up, Joe, or are you just kind of waving to me?
Yes, if you don't mind, I just wanted to clarify a few points in the record, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Thank you. So there were a few comments on the town's jurisdiction and what was subject to town review. Reference is made to page 41 of the record, where Mike Mueller, at our request, specifically wrote a letter to us clarifying what was reviewed at the town level. He notes that town review was restricted to the subdivision, and that subdivision plan did depict the 7 docks. Their jurisdiction does not cover docks. There was a decision, Hart decision several years ago, where many towns stopped administering dock jurisdiction in response to a Supreme Court case. So Mike Mueller states that, yes, the docks were on the subdivision plan. You'll note in the meeting minutes and in his letter that access to the shoreline was discussed as being foot traffic only, and that the town defers jurisdiction over the docks to the commission. So the town does not have jurisdiction, does not administer jurisdiction over the docks. So I just wanted to clarify that point. With respect to jurisdiction, the APA does have jurisdiction and did administer jurisdiction with respect to the docks. Their subdivision approval also included residential construction, wastewater, stormwater, and the 7 residential docks. I believe it was Mr. Fine said that the application would be in direct contravention of the town's approval. We did inquire with the town with respect to that too, because their letter to us was a little confusing at first. We received a response from the town attorney again, Mike Mueller, and he clarified that the comments were with respect to potential marina use. As many people have noted, the multiple docks appear to exceed what might be anticipated for a single family dwelling. And he notes that should this be consistent with the town approval for residential development, that the docks would be accessory to those residences and therefore consistent with the town's approval. If there's any indication, however, that this is to be used as a Class B marina or as a Class A marina, then that would be at odds with the town's approval. So my understanding, thanks to his clarification, is that residential use of these docks would be consistent with the town's approval. Yes, the town was aware that docks would be associated with this subdivision, although they did not have direct jurisdiction over the docks themselves. There are other comments with respect to lakefront. So just for clarity, 3 of the 4 lots have sufficient lakefront for up to 2 docks or 1 E-shaped dock. Lot 1 has enough frontage for 3 docks or 2 E-shaped docks. The lakefront in its totality, as we looked at more conservatively, allows for 7. So Devin proposed it as 7 rather than the 9, as could be the maximum for each individual lot. It is noted, and Mr. Caffrey notes, that lots 2 and 3 don't have sufficient lake frontage for 2 E-shaped docks, which is proposed. They have enough frontage for 1 E-shaped dock or 2 U-shaped docks, which would essentially have the same footprint or could have the same footprint. So just to clarify, there could be 9 in total if we looked at each lot individually, not all E-shaped docks. And even as proposed, that might be at odds with the 7 E-shaped docks based on the individual lakefront of each of these lots. So just wanted to clear, that gets a little confusing. There's a lot of different numbers, a lot of different allowances. But by the strict reading of the regs, if we went with the 7 docks, lot 1 could have 2 E-shaped docks based on its individual frontage, and lots 2, 3, and 4 could have up to 2 U-shaped docks or another shape, or 1 E-shaped dock. So that just to kind of clarify that, which perhaps I didn't. It's still a little muddled, I suspect. But if you have any questions on that aspect of it, I'm happy to answer any of your questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I would like to, at this point, just describe with the backing up of staff and council to keep me out of trouble. The commission examines the issues surrounding the application as proposed. Then the commission has a number of items that it could entail, whether it be approval as proposed, disapproval as proposed, suggested modifications, a tabling if there's enough feeling that there's additional information discovered today that those questions should be answered before we take activity. So with those thoughts in mind, and if council doesn't have any objection, I think it might be appropriate again to get some comments from the commissioners as to where suggestions they may have for us to proceed or to slow down.
I think I do think that, Vice Chair, that's something you should do is talk to all the commissioners now and see where they stand on all of this.
Okay. I made a list because I can't see you all. So first on my list is our chairman, Bruce. Are you still with us, Bruce, by phone?
So Bruce is still with us, Ken, but he's muted, and for some reason I'm unable to unmute him.
Okay.
So Bruce, perhaps you can unmute yourself. I'm not sure how you do that from a landline. So Ken, maybe you could move on.
Okay, I'll continue. Joe, you're next on my list. Joe Stanek.
Okay, I have a question for Devin. Is two things. One is that I did look at some of the boats in Boats by George, and Chaparral's got like a 38-inch draft, which brings concern about, coming back and then having to put in a variance to extend the dock if we had approved this. That's the first question. And the second question is the power for the facilities at the docks. How is that going to be handled?
All right. So Joe, you brought up a good point. The boat draft, there's a lot of different drafts depending on the boat. I understand this isn't necessarily the ideal lakefront to a certain extent for some people if a larger boat is kind of where you're headed. Yes, I think this will limit to a certain extent. You're probably going to be ski boats, pontoon boats, maybe smaller center consoles and outboards. I think overall for the bay, that's probably not a bad thing to get away from some of the bigger cruisers and bow riders. Like I said, I do a lot of dock work around the lake permitting, and I see all sorts of different shorelines, and there are many properties who are limited in boat size based on that draft. I've also done a lot of dredging projects. I don't personally feel that you would gain anything from dredging in a situation like this. In areas where it's a very gradual lake bed to deeper waters, you're really not gaining anything by dredging. You make a hole around the dock, you still have to get in there. So I really don't think this would be something that would benefit from a dredge. A longer dock to a variance, it kind of plays into that same thing. How much further out do you have to really go? When you look at these lake depths, you'd have to go out a considerable distance to really pick up the next foot to 2 feet of water depth. So again, I don't really feel that that's a practical avenue. And obviously that's something you guys would have to review. I think it's a situation where the owners are going to have to be aware of what they have, and they're going to have have boats that are specific to, being able to dock in shallower water. As far as the power goes, there are a lot of different things you can do with power. I don't specifically know where the utility poles end on each side. I know McKeegs there, Nate's Baits, they obviously have power. There's different things the owners can do. The steel pile docks do very well against ice damage. Maybe that's an option. There is solar power for, boat lifts and things. There are bubbler type systems that use very little power, the little air bubblers. They may be able to run off of solar. The other thing is, there are directional boring and different things that you could do to get power without disturbing, the road, disturbing the wetlands, or at least minimally disturbing. At this point, I don't know that anybody has any plans to run power. So I can't speak to any specifics as far as electric.
You all set, Joe?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Next on my list is Bill Mason.
I appreciate all the comments that we've been hearing, and I don't think that my concerns have really changed on the number of docks. I hate to see this happening, but I do think that there are property rights, and each one of these lots is a pretty good sized lot. And I think somewhere that we should be able to find a compromise from the 7 docks down to maybe 4 docks that would make sense to me. But I'm not sure yet, because it's concerning. The whole thing is concerning.
Okay. Dave Floyd.
Oh, Dave, you're muted. There you go.
I think I heard Devin say that the road is owned by the would-be 4 property owners who face the lake, and that the other residents there have a right-of-way. Is this correct?
Yes, Dave, Cotton Point Road is somewhat unique in that sense. It's really not an easement of use or town ownership or appropriation. The Finleys, and my memory's a little hazy on this. I dealt with this with Matt maybe 10 or more years ago. That came to light is they actually gave the town a deeded right of way to use the road for access to Cotton Point and to maintain it. So there is a definite title ownership of that road by Finley, which has now been sold to Caruso, which will then be to the four property owners. So it's a little bit of a unique situation. They do own that in fee title.
So they do own the road.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was thinking about electricity. They could run electricity right underneath that road to those docks if they had to as a possibility. And who's paying taxes on those properties? The new property owners will be, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to go back to my original comments that I think that a compromise of a dock per lot would be a amenable solution to this.
Okay. Dave, next, John McDonald.
Yeah, so I agree with Dave, although I kind of uncomfortable that the people that are objecting to this didn't see the compromise. So I would also be in support of tabling this. I'm not making the motion, but to let this one dock per lot concept be vetted out. There's also articulating docks that can be, that don't need electricity to they can come out of the water. I mean, they're kind of an eyesore, but it's another potential solution. But I would support the one dock per lot, but I would also encourage maybe tabling so that the residents have a chance to look at the compromise in greater detail.
Thank you. Commissioner Nisha.
Thanks, Ken. First of all, I think the application as it is presented is unacceptable and premature. We're going out of our way to help someone solve their problem. And we've given them some pretty good ideas, I think, of what we think would be acceptable. But we still don't have an application in front of us. And we probably don't even want to consider an application for these docks until there's some upland development. So I suggest we just move the question and deal with the application as presented.
Okay, thank you. Kathy, last but not least. Kath?
Sorry. First of all, Attorney Caffrey brought in a concept that I hadn't even considered, having an association for those 4 parcel owners. It works at a lot of other places on the lake. And I grew up in an association and no big deal walking down. We can all use a little more walking. There are a lot of things that I'm not ready to deal with right now. The size of the boats, the electricity, the parking, docks versus boathouses. And even on the other side of the fence, from what the people have disagreed on, everybody talking have been against, maybe there is something to say about 4 owners having more monitoring of the property and protecting the property more from the boats that dock or the boats that anchor out there and the people that swim in to use the wetlands as their restroom. So who knows? Actually, I'm just not ready to make any decision on this today. I think we should table it.
Thank you. Thanks, commissioners. My personal thought.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I believe
Yes.
Aaron Burns may.
Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron. You're down there in my corner like a shadow there. I apologize.
Hi. So I was going to ask about the dredging, but that was answered because it seemed a little shallow and we don't know what size boats they're going to need. So they're going to be limited by the depths that are there. But yes, I do agree that folks do have a riparian right of access to their, property right to have a dock. And I did think that the amount of docks being proposed seemed a little like unreasonable, like I didn't understand the need. APA did do the review and they were the seeker lead agency. So, I kind of feel some confidence there that the impacts were looked at by another state agency. So I'm game for a compromise, I guess, is the bottom line, for 1 dock per lot. That's it.
Thank you. Joe Stanek.
I was just thinking, two things. One is I do like the idea of possibly tabling it and listening to some alternatives. One of the alternatives I was thinking is I don't know who mentioned association, but it might be convenient and take a lot out of the comments that the people walking along the road, if we had an association and put and basically the shoreline would be one parcel that would be owned by all four lots, and put the docks more towards the 4 docks or whatever they may be, more towards the entrance of the subdivision, so that you wouldn't have the docks spread evenly across the total shoreline. That might eliminate one, a lot of walking on the road, and number 2 is a shorter distance to the homeowners, and maybe even have a potential for a bathroom near the subdivision road that they could walk to, and eliminate the problem of people relieving themselves in the lake. Just an option that I just started to think about.
Well, thank you. I think that this is the most interesting, complicated application that we've had in my many, many years on the commission. And I think that with the extreme amount of people that have spoken their minds, very honestly, very candidly, there have been issues raised this morning that the application and my thought process hadn't even thought of as we got the information, started reviewing it, and made our site visit, et cetera, et cetera. So I would ask the applicant, your choices as I see it are to allow the commission to vote yay or nay, which if it's declined, you understand what a declination is. It could be adapted with considerations, which I'm not sure that we've got enough time for the commission to personally discuss all the considerations they might want to include in this application. Or you could request to table it, voluntarily address the majority of, and I say that because of duplications, the majority of comments, and come back with a revised application, including the title of the application, and go for there. I just firmly believe this is much too complicated and too many issues for the commission to consider today.
Commissioner Parker, I would just like to pop in, I'm sorry, Devin, before you answer, based on the application before the commissioners, that you do have all of the facts before you. I mean, obviously the commissioners can do its pleasure, but I just want the commissioners to know that you do have the facts, so that if you wanted to make a determination today, you have all the facts to do so.
Thank you.
Kenny, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Chairman.
You can hear me?
Yes.
I would like to go back to what Mr. Nishaw said, that you have a choice right now of either moving the question on the original application for 7 or tabling it. You have a choice between the two, because you're sitting here trying to rebuild an application for an applicant with absolutely no authorization for the applicant to rebuild it, for one thing. And I think you actually, I'm going to second Mr. Nishaw's move to move the question is still on the table, and I'm going to second it to move the question to vote on the application. In other words, you're either going to table it or you're going to turn it down, because I can see, from what I've heard, I can't see that you commissioners are going to approve the application as it was applied, and I don't think you're in any position to build a application at this point for the applicant, which is what you're trying to do right now. So as we go back to what we said, you either have to table it and let them come back with another, or you vote on it and shoot them down and make them start from scratch.
So I'll move to table it.
There's a
I
motion
second
on
it.
the floor to table, second.
Yep.
All in favor of the tabling would be by any against the tabling? Motion to table this application is carried. Thank you very much for everything. Thank you for your counsel, Chairman. That's why we keep you on and keep you hidden so that.
I was still in on this whole conversation while I wasn't talking.
Well, I'm glad you referred to Commissioner Nishaw because I thought he was napping down there in Florida for a few minutes, but that's all right. We're going to carry on with the agenda as originally proposed.
Hey, Ken, can I ask a quick question?
Who is it?
This is Bill Montana from Cotton Point. I just have a question for you guys. You know, like if you go to the Adirondack Museum up in Blue Mountain Lake, they build like these docks that hover above the wetlands, giving access to stuff. I don't really want these things to come, these boathouses to come, but I just know what's going to do to our street. Is there a way to build a, you know, walking deck, you know, to get to those houses so that we don't have the traffic congestion?
Unfortunately, as I understand it, that's not in our purview. That's a Town of Bolton and an APA issue. You have a good suggestion, and I propose that you take it up with them. I can't disagree with that. I don't think we have that authority.
All right. I mean, I don't really want to see boathouses there, but if they're going to be there, I just know that traffic is going to be a problem. And that might be a solution that allows people to walk from their homes directly without ever going on the road that's going to cause the traffic. I still think there should be a single split dock and very limited, but if there's going to be something, that might be a way to address a lot of the big issues that we've got, scenic byway issues and other things. Just throwing it out there. Thank you for your time.
Understood. Thank you. Duly noted.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Well, if I could, Mr. Chairman, I think we have moved on. It is in your purview to I guess, hear when we go into regular public comments, anyone can speak. But at this point, I think we need to move forward.
I understand. Was that you, Mr. Finley, that was point of order?
Yes, sir.
Could you hold it? We're going to have public comments in just a couple of minutes. So I'll call on you first.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Item 4 on our printed agenda is the update of our proposed stormwater management stream corridor protection regulations we've been working on. And Dave Wick, I don't have you in my vision, but
yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I can just jump in. I know we're running pretty long today, so just a very quick update for commissioners' edification and also the public on our stormwater and stream corridor regulations. As everyone recalls, if you've been following this process, we began our review of our stormwater regulations back in late 2017, been carrying through to today, a very comprehensive process. Most recently, we had a public hearing on September 22nd. We received about 20 comments. We put together a response to comments that is on our website. All documents related to both the stormwater and the stream corridor regulations in draft form are on our website for the public to take a look at, and of course the commissioners as well. Received, like I said, about 20 comments for stormwater, about 12 for the stream corridor. The stream corridor closed the public comment period was January 19th. So staff is working right now on response to comments. We should have that done by next Friday. That will be posted on our website for the public and the commissioners to take a look at as well. Then we move forward from there. So just a very quick update for folks. If anybody had any questions from the commissioners, please let me know and I'll try to answer.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is Law Enforcement Committee report, which we're required to do. And I will simply say that we did have a Law Enforcement Committee meeting this morning, and we discussed some equipment replacements, some winter maintenance, update to our radar and sound meters, some New York State reimbursements. And I will read you a resolution that I can just barely see. Resolution 2021-04, whereas the Law Enforcement Committee met via teleconference January 26, 2021 to review matters pertaining to the Lake George Commission's Marine Patrol and the Commission's law enforcement program. And whereas active law enforcement cases and status were reviewed in executive session. And whereas the Law Enforcement Committee has reported on the results of that committee meeting at this full commission meeting, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee recommends acceptance of this month's law enforcement report, now therefore be it resolved that the commission accepts the report of the Law Enforcement Committee, and I would look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion seconded. All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Motion carried. We now enter the final phase of our agenda, which is public comments. And I don't want to allow a continuance of the public comments as regards the project, but Mr. Finley did give me a point of order, and I think I know what that means, so I'm going to allow him to make a short comment.
Thank you, sir. I think you actually referred to this. I renew respectfully my request that you change the name of the Caruso project to the current owner. And if for clarity of all my neighbors who are interested, if you want to refer to it as the former Finley property, something like that. But I request that you change the name to the current owner. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you. Justin, you're going to have to help me on this one because I can't see a lot of faces. Public comments from anyone?
All right. At this point, if folks wish to make a comment, please unmute yourself and say your name, and I'll start calling on folks.
Hi, can you guys hear me? It's Steve Vermont.
Hi, Steve. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Good. I'd just like to make a comment on a letter that I believe that Dave may have reviewed with you today that's went out to Commissioner Basil Scruggs and Chairman Young on the Lake George Aquatic Invasive Species Protection Program as it relates to the Lake George Park Commission ruling section 646-9-2 of existing regulations. And this is pursuant to try and keeping the launches open earlier in the next season and close later in the next season so people can enjoy the lake, but then locking them up after hours as they've been doing and after the season closes. We believe the signatures of that letter believe that it's imperative to try and protect the lake from hydrilla, which, as you all know, was found this year at the southern section of the lake. I'd like you guys to just take a second and think hard before this comes back up. I know Dave's going to meet with DEC, but I'd like you to go online if you could and read State Controller DiNapoli's email that was dated July 23rd, 2020 of the boating season poses significant risks for the spread of aquatic invasives. In there, he comments about the high cost of trying to control hydrilla. And I'll just read you one section of this, if I may. It says, for example, between April 2017 and September 2019, DEC spent nearly $1.8 million trying to control and stop the spread of hydrilla and plan to spend more. This is a devastating invasive. It has a huge economic impact on the local towns, people around the lake, property values. And it's a situation that I appreciate Dave working with us, and he needs to be commented on and thanked for last year to keep guys in the lake. He let those boat launches stay open up until the day before Thanksgiving. And that was great, Dave. We appreciate you doing that. It helped a lot of people. And these are the DEC launches for everybody's information at Mossy Point, Rogers Rock, and Million Dollar Beach. I'm not going to dwell on this, but this is a very important situation going forward to try and get DEC to control those launches. And as you read in the letter, there's signatures from all over the lake going forward on this. And it's a situation that we believe needs to be addressed. And we appreciate what DEC has done in the past and what the Park Commission has done in the past. And as you saw from the letter, we believe we have an answer to try and help protect the lake and keep it safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Ken, can I jump in for a quick second?
Sure thing.
So Steve has put together a letter. I think only a couple of you have seen it so far. Just request the commission continue its inspection program until December 15th instead of November 1st right now, and start it 2 weeks earlier on April 15th instead of May 1st. And Steve and the consortium has vowed to come up with the approximately $32,000 additional dollars to make that happen in that shoulder season. So that's a conversation that I'm having with DEC leadership on Wednesday. And once we have that conversation, which no decisions will be made, I'll bring it back to the full board for your consideration in the future. I've already talked to this in some detail with Justin and Roger, who run the program, and we'll provide you with a recommendation thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve, too. Anybody else on the horizon, Justin?
Yep, actually, I have a request from Edmund Schieber to have Mr. Finley clarify the ownership / right of way on Cotton Point Road, if that's something he's willing to do.
I don't know that that's appropriate.
Okay.
It's
I'll
probably
leave that.
necessary, but not appropriate for this right now.
Okay.
I would suggest to him that he pursue that with the staff after the meeting. Interesting point.
Okay. And I've got another question in the chat. Is there a timeline for the tabling of the?
I believe that would be up to the applicant.
That's what I thought.
If they can make next month's agenda. I mean, we're here every month, 12 months a year. So it's once it's tabled, it's in the applicant's hands, not ours.
Right.
So, Mr. Vice Chairman, can I just ask a question, I guess? So it's staff's job to make sure that an application is as ready as it can be for your consideration. I want to make sure that we're able to let the applicant know what the specific issues are that the commissioners would like to hear more about prior to them coming back. So it doesn't have to happen today, but at some point in the next few days, perhaps I can get a few folks online to discuss what the commissioners are more interested in hearing about, so we can be very clear with the applicant to make sure that we can make a decision at an upcoming meeting.
Very good. Thank you. Justin?
All right. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to make a comment?
Okay. I would like to thank everybody for the patience with our electronic issues and the way we're doing business now. What I really miss is the rolling of the eyes from the audience as various comments are made. That gives us a lot of leeway as to how people are feeling, etc. But having said that, I wish you all well, and get your snow shovels out, because we're supposed to get some snow this afternoon. Motion to adjourn?
Your skis, yeah, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, I think I see, and we stand adjourned till the next time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.